Hi, everyone. So I'm listening to some language that's coming out of some of the teams, and I've been trying to talk to some of you that seem like you're having a little bit of a problem fostering community. So I thought I'd bring in a lecture about tribal leadership. This is based on a book that I read a few years ago, and many other entrepreneurs have read and to use it to develop their companies, such as Zappos or LinkedIn comes to mind right away. Daniel Shays was probably one of the most surprising entrepreneurs when he left Harvard to create his company, his first one we'll talk about. But I want to kind of give you an idea of how I identify, and I've worked personally with teams to work with that negative Nancy, as human resources directors like to call them. So let's look at the stages of tribal leadership. It says sort of has five stages. I call the first one the hostile, or the negative Nancy is what I like to call it. The second is the sarcastic stage. The third is the hoarders. Then you have transition to where we are great, or the empowerment stage is another phrase I like to use. And finally, the externalizing greatness, or empowering others, creating a culture of community. If we look at stage one, and we can all identify, unfortunately, sometimes with ourselves or others, the hostile stage. And this becomes because of fear in a lot of essences. New employees go through this a lot of times because they fear not knowing or having something to share with a community or a group. Or when you start new teams, you don't know. And that's why I ask teams to do SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I do this with every team I work with so I can understand who you are and how I fit in, or how I can share and become greater and empower you or learn from you. I strongly suggest your team does this if it has not done so, and share this. Share it with me. It helps reduce stress and anxiety. In this stage of tribal leadership, professionals are kind of hostile to each other, and a lot of times it's only one person, and that's a fear thing, and you have to work with them no matter what. Tribes all have these people that get hostile. They look for scandals, or they try to create scandals inside of a group, or conflict. They're the time stealers in your group. They're the ones who says they're going to do it, but they come up with 43 excuses. My kids have to go to baseball, or I had to go swimming, or I have to work more on this other team, or my boss is really wanting me to do this. They have excuses for everything. I'm overworked. You have to deal with this. Not my problem. I don't care. I hear this a lot still to today. Every culture has this. They threaten violence, maybe not physically, but they're the ones who threaten, I'm going to human resources. I'll take care of him. My boss is an idiot. The team leader is a schmuck. We've all heard these people. Instead of trying to listen, they're fending off their fears. We have to think about ways to get these negative Nancys inside. Or every decision the company has is stupid. That's foolish. We're going to be in peril because of this. They're negative all the time. They can't see past anything. There's no positive reflections in any of their thoughts. They become toxic to your community, your group, your environment. So most people just have to work around them instead of trying to empower them. So this is what I want you to think about. I'm hearing you're having negative Nancys in your group. So we're going to talk about how to move them from that stage into the second stage. The second stage is really, according to the book and theory and individualism. Tribes are developing. If you look at it from what they've surveyed, 25% of workplaces have tribe culture to dominate in this stage. That means they're kind of stuck there. I like to think about this, remember, they're sarcastic. They're moving from everything sucks, and they're starting to think about, well, maybe my skills suck, or I need to empower myself. I need to motivate myself. I'm weak here. So they start seeing themselves and reflecting this and shunning themselves. Maybe they'll shut themselves out of the group, not respond. You can't get hold of them. You're constantly badgering them to communicate. And it's because they're internalizing this fear and they're recognizing that it's not everything in this organization or team or culture. It reflects a lot about them. And they're seeing others as empowered, and it's fearful because they can't breach that, because in their minds it means I'm less than, or I need help, or I need to grow, but I don't want to because it says I'm weak. It's an internal struggle at this point, the resistance to any change. It could be as simple as changing an office space, changing a meeting time, a method of communicating, say Skype, to Google. They fight internally the new management idea or the ideas of the team leader constantly. They start picking internal fights against them. Unless there's an incentive, they're not encouraged to do anything. They don't care about the team win. The fact that you're going to get an A versus a B. It's about still them. But they're negative Nancy's that are observing things. They're understanding there's a difference and there's a problem. And they're now recognizing I am the problem. So this stage 3 comes about when you, as a team, start bringing everyone in. This is 50% of the workplaces in America. And most countries in Europe have the same issues. And we all understand the theory of knowledge hoarding by companies, but internal knowledge hoarding is a way and a method by most people or employees to think they can get ahead. They become the next leader. They can become the next vice president or president. They start thinking about outworking and outthinking their competitors. This individual basis is not really there. It starts becoming the negative Nancy gets on board, says, okay, I did a SWOT analysis. I really see my weakness is writing code, particularly Python. And I see that Dr. Spangler can write Python, so I'm going to talk to him on the sly and empower myself, which creates a mentoring philosophy. And the internal group sees this as a win because now Nancy is on board. They're getting their stuff done. They're meeting their NAT charts. They're meeting their projects and the demands, and they're winning. They're getting everything done. Grades are going up. Production is moving ahead. Quality is ahead. They start seeing themselves as the teacher's pet through this mentoring because they want to mentor someone else. They get empowered. They do feel important. I like putting the word to feel important. It reminds me of the old movies where everyone wanted to feel something in the movies and the black and whites. They were always trying to gain something, and they grouped it together in their mind. Instead of being independent, it's now a grouping of thoughts and feelings. The same as outthink, outwork. Everything becomes a grouping when it becomes feelings and emotions and situations to win. The group is now grouping itself. But they have a problem of lacking the ability to emphatically listen to others. Maybe supervisors. Maybe it's me. You don't want to listen to me as a professor who guides you and helps you. And those supervisors have to let you fail at some points. So the ability to emphatically listen is that next stage. Now you're getting the negative Nancy on board by using strengths and empowering them to be a mentor. But now it comes bigger. It's a transition to we are great. And this method comes because the tribe members are all excited now. They all have something to offer. Other groups who are still fighting don't see this, and they're asking them questions. Well, how did you get Nancy on board? How did you guys get this done? Why did you get an A over us? So they're seeking win-win solutions for everything. There's a division is released to human resources. In other words, negative Nancy is fired in a lot of cases if she or he is not on board. Or human resources deals with the person. They're removed from the company. They're removed from the organization. They're put in another division. They're given another last-ditch chance. Individualism is discarded. Internal teams are now developed inside of the team. Instead of one team working individually to create the goal, you have the same team dividing up with strengths to work on the individual parts so everybody wins together faster. And you're reflecting this outward somewhat. You're starting to help. You're listening to other teams with problems. When we do this, we move. We look at this, and there's only about 2% of organizations in the world who think about this. It's an impact that's changing on a global perspective because global wins are more important than internal wins. The entire company must win instead of just our division, our team. You start teaching each other. You start gaining knowledge from other teams that are stronger. You cooperate, you work with, you build relationships across the silos, as I like to call them, from the reference of a grain silo to where they develop in a vertical essence next to each other, but never connect and never share. They start eliminating them. They bridge together. They work from bottom up instead of top down, so everyone has a voice and opinions and thoughts that happen. If we think about Ford Motor Company back in the day, Ford listened to the people on his line. He understood that they were having problems getting the work done when cars weren't being developed fast enough because the metal that he was buying was inferior. And he asked, what should we do? He said, and the workers said, let's make our own metal so it's more flexible and bends faster. Ford actually bought a steel mill and created his own steel just to listen to his workers and help them become better, which was allowing them to produce more cars faster and stronger. They looked at external correspondences and how they could do this. They talked to other steel mill workers, hired them, brought them into their community. They had external consultants, just like you can do. You can talk to me, you can talk to Capson, you can talk to all other kinds of people. There are many external people that we have in our lives, other professors, mentors, pastors, deans, past professionals you've worked with. These are all parts of how you can share with others and bring them into your community to make it stronger. It's a sharing culture, yes. It's a community of developing. It's now a community of theory, which goes beyond your borders. One of my favorite things to talk about is Shays. When he first came out and brought into the theory of Zappos culture, was very, very different, very shunned by organizational leaders. For those of you who don't know Tony's actual background, as a Harvard student, he would sell pizza in a pizza shop. In particular, one man would come every day and buy a large pizza, walk back up the hill, and sell it. Shay thought he was buying it for himself. He didn't understand there was a business model where students were lazy and didn't want to walk down the hill to get pizza. One man didn't want to get a job, so he would go down daily, buy a pizza, come back up and sell a slice for $1.50 and make profit. He told this finally to Shays, and he says, well, how do I get you to buy 2 pizzas today? He says, well, give me a reward. If I buy 10, give me 1 free, and that way I make more profit, and I'll buy 2 a day. And I'll do more work to build myself more profit. And the two started doing this together. Eventually, they created their first company called Link Exchange, and they sold it to Microsoft for $265 million. Not bad. They used a tribal culture there. And when the culture wasn't working, Shays actually sold the company because he's so unhappy about working in a culture of negative Nancys everywhere. He couldn't stand it. So he sold his own company just because of that and went to work developing Zappos. He wanted it to be a community over profit, where customers are family. He created 500 community members. We call them customer service agents in most cases. But their goal was not to sell you shoes. The philosophy is we're people that just so happen to sell shoes, but like to talk to other people. So he's looking for people who like to communicate, talk, that are different, that want to come to work with a clown outfit on, Or stop in the middle of the day and have a baseball game. Build a jungle gym in the middle of the office. Who knows? Something that builds. Something that is different. They're there to find solutions for anyone who calls in. The record, from what I understand, is over 8 hours with one customer that one community member did. Unfortunately, I don't believe they sold shoes. At the time of this, it was an interesting concept that he's continued on. They look to find external products to bring in now today that helps foster relationships with other companies. When someone buys something in their culture, they do a free 2-day upgrade so that you feel like you're part, you're more important, you are a family member. You're being thanked by the culture. It's a very different philosophy of tribal world. I grabbed a little video I want you guys to watch and just listen to his top 10 ideas about culture and how we can change ourselves.
He's an American internet entrepreneur and venture capitalist. He's the CEO of the online shoe and clothing store Zappos. Prior to joining Zappos, he co-founded Link Exchange, which he sold to Microsoft for $265 million. He's Tony Hsieh, and here are his top 10 rules for success. The great companies had a vision that had a higher purpose, beyond just money or profits or being number one in the market. And kind of the irony there is that by not making profits the number one priority of the company or the higher purpose of the company, it actually enabled these companies to generate more profits in the long term. So sometimes when I speak at entrepreneur conferences, I get asked, what's a good market to go into where it can make a lot of money? And my response to them is, instead of thinking about where you can make a lot of money, think about what are you so passionate about doing that you'd be happy doing it for 10 years, even if you never made a dime, and that's what you should be doing. And kind of the ironic thing is the money will actually follow. So we've all heard of Craigslist. He didn't set out to make money. He was passionate about the community, and now it's one of the top traffic websites on the internet. So I like to say chase the vision, not the money. There was a movie that came out I think a couple years ago called Notorious. I think it only lasted a week in the movie theater, but I saw it. And in it, Biggie Smalls, also known as Notorious B.I.G., Puff Daddy says to Biggie Smalls, don't chase the paper, chase the dream. I just want an excuse to put this picture up here. Anyways, so if you're an entrepreneur, think about what would you be so passionate about doing that you'd be happy doing it for 10 years, even if you never made a dime from it. And if you have employees, think about what's the larger vision and greater purpose in the work, beyond just money or profits or being number one in a market.
Company culture was always important, and myself and Fred interviewed everyone when we were still in San Francisco, basically until we couldn't do that anymore because there were too many employees to interview. But basically, we had this criteria of interview for the normal business technical stuff, but
do them at the bar,
right? So do the normal set of interviews, but then you kind of had this final test of like, is this someone I would choose to hang out with or grab a drink with? And if the answer was, if we weren't in business together, if the answer was no, then we wouldn't hire them.
So that goes against a lot of the things that I've heard out there in the past. It's like keep your work and personal relationships separate. Like that's kind of been like a thing that's been stated out there. Like there should be this firewall between the two. But you went in and said, okay, it's very important that I can actually get along with this person. This is someone I can go out and have a beer with. Why was that so important? Why was that so important to you?
I guess I have two answers to that. One is, yes, there are companies that focus on work-life separation or work-life balance, and at Zappos we really focus on work-life integration, and at the end of the day, it's just life. So especially if you spend so much time at work, like you better hopefully enjoy the time that you're spending there and the people that you're with. So that's one answer, and then the other answer is. And I don't think the book existed at the time Zappos was founded, but Jim Collins, his book good to great, researched and looked at what separated the great companies in terms of long-term financial performance from just the good ones or mediocre ones, and found that the great ones had two important ingredients that separated them from just the good ones or mediocre ones, and one of them was that they all had strong cultures. And we formalized the definition of our culture into, we have 10 core values at Zappos, and one of the actually really interesting things I found from the research was that it actually doesn't matter what your values are. What matters is that you have them and that you align the organization with them. And the power actually comes from the alignment, not from the actual values. So there's no judgment of values. And so we're not out there telling people, oh, you should adopt the Zappos values and culture and so on, because actually that would probably not work in most cases. Where our message is more, you should figure out what your values are, and then align the entire organization.
So our whole philosophy is, let's take most of the money that we would have spent on paid advertising or paid marketing, and rather than buy our exposure, instead let's invest it into customer service and the customer experience, and let our customers do the marketing for us through word of mouth. On any given day, about 75% of our orders are from repeat customers, and we basically grew from no sales in 1999 to in 2008 was the first year where we hit $1 billion in gross merchandise sales. And actually, even despite the bad economy, we've actually continued to grow over the last 2 years. In fact, our net sales for Q1 this year were up almost 50% year over year. And people ask us, what did we do differently over this last 24 months? And it's actually, we actually didn't do anything differently, and it's not because of anything we did over the past 2 years. It's because of all the investment we made prior to that we continue to grow because of the loyalty of our customers. And the number one driver of all that growth is through repeat customers and word of mouth.
I would say probably the biggest thing is it's just patience, and I don't mean patience as in terms of just sitting around and hoping something miraculous will happen, but really when you're making decisions for your business, thinking long term, thinking about what is actually going to make a difference 10 years from now, and what's actually going to make a difference 2 or 3 years from now. But I think most people get stuck in what's going to make a difference this week or this quarter or even this year, and when you think longer term, the decisions you make end up being very different. And so things like culture, for example, if your culture, if someone goes downhill tomorrow or if something improves tomorrow, you're not going to see the effects this quarter or this year even in terms of your bottom line. But 2 or 3 years down the road you will. And the same thing with customer service. If we hypothetically stopped answering our phones and fired everyone in our call center, that would actually have a huge gain in our profits for 2009. I don't think it would hurt our top line revenue. We'd still do over $1 billion in gross sales, but 2 or 3 years from now, then we'd start feeling the effect. So I think the biggest thing is just how long-term are you thinking?
I always like doing these thought experiments, and so one way to think about it is if money were no issue, if you had infinite money, what would you do? Or the counter to it is if everything was free, or if this one thing was free, then what would you do differently? And so I think that can help spark the initial ideas, and then once you kind of have the crazy out there idea, then you work backwards and make it more into reality. For example, a lot of startup tech companies have problems hiring tech talent. So what if there's a line out the door of amazing engineers, then what would you do differently? And then that might shift the thinking into, okay, how do we get a line out the door of really talented engineers and make that the problem, the real problem that you're trying to tackle? Or actually, it's back to Zappos history. In the early days, we had trouble hiring people that were really good buyers and good at merchandising. Initially, the problem was framed as,
how do we go and recruit more talented buyers, but then we reframed it as, well, how do we, the only way we can guarantee kind of an endless supply of talented buyers is if we basically grow and train them ourselves. And so now we have a program where we hire people that are entry level, and within 3 to 5 years they have the potential to become a senior leader within the company. You talk to managers and tell them you should be spending 10 to 20% of your time outside the office with your team. Initially, the response from some of them are, well, is that really working? We're just hanging out. And then we ask the managers that have done it, how much more productive is your team, because there's better communication and higher levels of trust, and people are willing to do favors for each other because they're doing favors for friends, not for just a coworker. And in terms of increased productivity, the answers range from anywhere from 20% to 100%. So kind of worst case scenario, you break even. I mean, we were fresh out of school, just didn't know what we were doing, and I think I'd say one of the lessons that actually you would think we'd learned the first time, but kind of repeats itself throughout history is actually just not having enough self-confidence, right? Like thinking, if we hire this external person that has this great resume, then they'll be great. And it feels weird, but they must know more than we do. And I think one of the lessons we learned through Link Exchange was actually, if you're one of the co-founders, you probably know more about the business than someone that's just coming in from the outside. But we were young at the time, and one of our interview questions is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? And if you're a 1, you might be a little bit too straight-laced for the Zappos culture. 10, maybe a little bit too psychotic for us. But it's not so much the number that we care about. It's how they answer, because our belief is that everyone is a little weird somehow, and this is really more just a fun way of saying that we really recognize and celebrate each person's individuality, and we want their true personalities to come out and shine in the workplace. There's so many people where they're a different person at home on weekends versus when they're inside the office, and people in corporate America leave a little bit of themselves, or in a lot of cases, a big part of themselves at home. And we really strive to create an environment where people are just comfortable being themselves. So instead of worrying about work-life separation, it's about work-life integration, where it's just the same person. And not only are you comfortable being yourself, but when you connect with your coworkers, it's not just coworker relationships, but true friendships that end up forming, where you would choose to hang out with these people even if you weren't working at the same company together. So these are some of the questions that we ask ourselves in terms of thinking about how to deliver great customer service. And we internally use the word wow when thinking about how we should treat customers, but we use it as a verb. We talk about how do we wow our customers, and also how do we wow our employees and the vendors that we work with. And it starts with the policies you see on our website. We offer free shipping both ways, so a lot of people will order 10 different pairs of shoes, try them on in the comfort of their living room with 10 different outfits, and then send back the ones that don't fit or they don't like, and we encourage that type of behavior. We have a 365-day return policy for people that I guess have trouble committing or making up their minds, and they can take a while to return products. And most websites, it's very hard to find contact information. Usually it's buried 5 links deep, and maybe it's an email address you can only email once. Whereas for us, we take the exact opposite approach. We put our 1-800 number on the top of every single page of our website, because we actually want to talk to our customers. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be speaking at a branding or marketing conference, and there's a lot of discussion about consumers being bombarded with thousands and thousands of marketing messages every day. How do you get your message to stand out? How do you get your brand to stand out? And should they be investing millions of dollars in this 30-second Super Bowl ad that people may or may not be paying attention to? Or should they be leveraging the latest in the social media fad? And for us, as kind of low-tech and unsexy as it may sound, we found that the telephone is actually one of the best branding devices out there, because we have the customer's undivided attention for 5 to 10 minutes, and if we get the interaction right, we find that the customers remember that for a very long time and tell their friends and family about us. And we run our call center very differently from most call centers. We don't have scripts. We don't have the concept of average handle time, which most call centers have, which is all about how quickly
quickly can you get the customer off the phone in the name of being more efficient. But we're not trying to maximize for efficiency. We're trying to maximize for the customer experience. And we don't upsell. And so going back to the no call time, I actually just got an email last night. A new record was set for the longest phone call ever. It was 8 hours and 3 minutes long. So
I don't know
how the bathroom situation works out for that one. But so
and it may seem weird
that for us, we're an internet company. 95% of our sales go through the website. So why do we focus so much on the telephone? And what we found is actually, on average, almost every customer calls us at least once, sometime during their lifetime. And it's actually usually not to place an order. Most of our phone calls do not result in orders. It might be their first time going through the returns process, and they just need help stepping through the process of printing out the return label for the first time. Or maybe they have a wedding over the weekend, and they just want some fashion advice. And I think we have some customers that call us because they're lonely, and we'll talk to them as well. So
that's our call center.
And then for our warehouse, we actually run it very differently from most warehouses as well. Most warehouses, they let the orders pile up so that when the picker needs to walk around, there's higher picking density, more efficient, doesn't need to walk as far. For us, we run our warehouse 24/7, which is not the most efficient way to run a warehouse. But we're not trying to maximize for efficiency, and because we run it 24/7, and because our warehouse is located in Kentucky, right next to the UPS hub, and because we do these surprise upgrades to overnight shipping for most of our repeat loyal customers, when you combine all three of those things, a lot of customers order as late as midnight Eastern time, and the shoes show up on their doorstep 8 hours later when they're expecting it a week later. And that creates that whole emotional response we're trying to elicit in that wow experience that causes them to remember us.
So I wanted you guys to listen to some of this. I'm going to pause right there
for a very long time and tell their friends and family about it.
It's something we really need to think about. And his last statement is really just about being
ultimate definition of success is
the ability for us to say, you know what, I really love this job. I really love this team. And that's what gets us together to empower others and others to see us being empowered. Ed Hoffman kind of had the same philosophy when he created LinkedIn, if anyone's ever heard of Ed. His idea also spurred from tribal knowledge. The same book, the same idea, the same philosophy is what caused the idea of LinkedIn. It was basing himself on being able to get more friends, more people, and creating a larger community so he can grow as a person and as a leader. And internally, that's another idea once it develops as a self-grouping and a culture of developing greatness because it externalizes. And we've all used LinkedIn and can see how we can internalize ourselves into this mix, and we get feedback from other people, and they want to be our friends. They want to get on board with us and listen to our posts and ask us questions and see if we can help, especially for an organization to help. So these are things that are helping us. What is our goal still? The end. Making sure we're on target. Making sure the process as we go through this is happy and we all get a meaningful experience. I see this as a road. It is a journey. And remember, everybody's trying to get to the same goal. The end, an A, happiness. So let's work together. Let's create a community, an aspect of culture inside of our own university, and work together to foster relationships outside of this course, outside of this classroom. Develop a company from this. I want to see success. You are my success measure. I look forward to the next A I get to give you all. Everyone have a great day. Get out there, see the sun, ride a bike, spend some time with your sons or daughters, your dog, your neighbor's cat, whatever it might be to make you happy today. Remember, it's just academics. We're just learning and we're growing together. Talk to you later.